What is it? How are we defining it? Has it changed through the years? Since the 1932 revolutions and the absolute monarchy, campaigns to construct the Thai identity has become one of the tools to unify the country. Even now, under the military regime, Thainess has become a cornerstone in redefining and promoted through campaigns by the government. But what exactly is Thainess? If you're on the Twitter sphere today, there's been a lot of debate already about what Thainess is and how has Thainess changed and how useful or hurtful it is it to Thailand. So here we have a very distinguished panel who will talk about what Thainess is and some of the historical contexts with it. We would like to start with Kundaruni, who is from the Ministry of Culture. She's the Director of International Relations Bureau and has organized many cultural exchange programs. And in those, I'm very sure she's used to defining what Thainess is and explaining what Thailand is in these cultural exchanges. So we would like to begin with Kundaruni.
So, good evening. Good evening. As I am from the Ministry of Culture, I asked the moderator, Kun Pailin, to start first because I would like to start with the government policy on Thainess. Because Thainess in the meanings of Ministry of Culture is culture affairs. So my Thainess meaning may be so conventional. So our Ministry of Culture has operated in compliance with the government policy to conserve and maintain Thai culture, and we use the name Thainess as the project to promote international relations also. So we have the project called Thainess to the World that we adapt already existing cultural fund to add economic values, which could further increase the national revenue and strengthen ties with other nations through the cultural dimension. And at the same time, moreover, the foreign policy is one of our key strategies to enhance the national tourism and support goods and services from Thailand internationally. So the development of the film industry is also a very practical and profitable tool for cultural promotion, as films effectively disseminate Thainess to different parts of the world. So for the domestic promotion scheme, Ministry has implemented a project called Cultural Product of Thailand, or CPOT, since 2014 last year. In this project, a creative cultural product which best represent the cultural charms of its province will be selected into the list of CPOT. And this has greatly contributed to the social and economic values to the products and generate more income to local communities, which consequently creates stability to the nation as a whole. So the Thai cultural products can be categorized into 5 groups for the cultural product of Thailand, including food, fabric, jewelry, decorative items. So this is the example of the cultural products of Thailand that Ministry of Culture promote these days. Also the performing arts, martial arts and folk plays. Apart from the cultural product of Thailand project, Ministry of Culture has also implemented another project called Cultural Root, because the cultural root is the gathering of all knowledge about Thainess from various localities and information from all organizations within the ministry to manage systematically and turn such knowledge into the root and a great source for cultural education and creativity in the society. This will lead to higher economic values, which will help local people aware and take part in the search of their local cultures and create an intervened sense of pride among themselves and reduce the issue of people moving to urbanized areas and abandoning their homeland. So for Thainess, in terms of domestically used, we use it as the tool for promoting the proud of culture, the culture of the local people, and also this Thainess campaign can also promote the economic value and creativity, and also for the tourism as well. For international scheme, culture is essential to bring good image as well as popularity to the country, for it has soft power to change attitudes, values, and ways of life, or even the economic and political nations. As a result, the government has realized such important roles of culture and announced it as one of the national strategies that all sections must join force to promote good national image worldwide. It is culture that is able to enhance the country's situation rapidly, as well as to increase more economic opportunities and extend the cordial relations with the nations. Therefore, the Ministry of Culture has implemented the program called Thainess to the World. So we bring the road shows of Thai performing arts. It's especially suitable for different tastes and styles of people in each country. And we bring the kind of exhibition of the cultural products of Thailand, and also the exhibition, the performing arts, the craft, to showcase outside the country internationally, to show the Thainess to the world. So this year we have the big project called Totally Thai event, which will be showcased in London this month. We have the Cone performance at the Royal Albert Hall in London on June 18. And also we have the Thai Film Festival at BAFTA in London from the 25th to 27th this year. And also the exhibition we call Thailand Eye. This is what we call it Totally Thai, which is based on the disseminating Thainess to the world. So this is what Ministry of Culture tried to use Thainess to promote Thai culture in the country and also internationally. Thank you.
Thank you, Kundarani. And I also like to give a especially thank Kundarani because she stepped in at the very last minute when Dr. Apinan wasn't able to make it from the Ministry of Culture. So she had very little time to prepare.
So sorry.
Our next guest is Kun Chatan who is the Executive Director of Advertising and Public Relations at the Tourism Authority of Thailand. He has 28 years of experience developing and directing public marketing communication strategy, and his department has recently launched the Discover Thailand campaign. Kun Chatan?
Thank you. It's actually Discover Thainess.
Oh, sorry. Discover
It's okay.
Thainess.
It's okay.
My
I get mixed up
apologies.
myself, so that's fine. Good evening. It's good to be back. I haven't been back here in a while, so great to see you all, and thank you for the invitation. The Ministry of Culture has said what Thainess is in an overall aspect, in a broad umbrella kind of way. For us, Thainess, and this, I'm just reading this out, okay, so just bear with me. Thainess is the distinct entity and characteristic of the Thai people and the nation's cultural assets. Actually, there's more, but I just keep it short. To convey Thainess, especially to foreigners, is a challenging task. So we have defined 7 areas that we are promoting to the foreign markets, foreign target markets. 1, Thai food. 2, Thai arts. 3, Thai way of life. 4, Thai wisdom. 5, Thai wellness. 6, Thai festivity. And 7, Thai fun. Okay, so most of that is self-explanatory. Okay, explanatory. Okay, explanatory. Okay, sorry. And but let's. I would like to just to focus on Thai way of life. That is essentially, you know, things like merit making in the morning, going to temples, children swimming in the klongs or canals, Thai homestay, farming, that sort of thing. So to give you an idea, Thai wisdom is basically anything that may be related to religion, but basically is spiritual beliefs, like the spirit house, like tattoos, things like that. Thai wellness is basically, your Thai massage, spas, Thai herbs, Thai medicine, that sort of thing. Thai festivities, all the festivals around Thailand. Like Pita Khon at the end of this month in Loi, or Songkran, which you all know well, and Loi Krathong. Thai fun is basically anything you do here that is fun. Riding a tuk-tuk, but of course you don't get into accidents, then it won't be such fun. But riding in a tuk-tuk, temple fairs, night markets, and even Muay Thai. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what Thainess, in our definition, for TAT is.
Great, thank you so much, Kakun Tatan. Next we have Philip Cornwell Smith, who I'm sure doesn't need much of an introduction. He's the leading authority on Thai popular culture and the author of Very Thai. He also used to be the founding editor. Was the founding editor of the capital's first city listings magazine, Bangkok Metro. The editor of Time Out Bangkok Guidebooks and Thailand's Traveler Companion, and the writer of the TAT newsroom for a decade. Philip, take it away.
Thank you very much. I've been in publishing here for 2 decades now, and a lot of that time I felt I've been in a position of needing to explain things about this culture to a non-Thai readership. And when I came to do the book Very Thai, which is over a decade ago, essentially the concept of the book was to explain the aspects of Thai life and Thai characteristics that at that time were just not covered by the national narrative. Basically, the phrase Very Thai was a turn of phrase at the time for things that people knew were Thai, they felt Thai, but there was no explanation for them or rationale behind them. So they said, well, they're very Thai, in a kind of open-ended shrug. Now, a lot has changed in the decades since. In fact, many of the things that Kunchatan has mentioned were not part of the tourist promotion at that time, things like tattoos and temple fairs and so forth. That is because they're relatively low status things, or their status had fallen over time. And many of the popular culture things are not top down, they're bottom up. So they're to do with popular choice, and so there's not so much control over them. And there are as many reasons why those aspects of popular culture were not in the national narrative. A lot of these things are urban, and if you look at the general image of Thainess and how it's presented, there isn't a very strong urban component. It's folk, it's court, it's temple, and certain ritual things, but it doesn't tend to have a sense of Thai urbanism. It's also quite commercial. It's not high-minded. It's not highly principled. It's matter of fact, mass-produced, mass-consumed. A lot of these popular culture things are hybrids, particularly with modernity. In fact, the criteria of what was included in Very Thai was because they were not wholly modern or wholly traditional, that they were some kind of Thai way of processing modernity and imports to the culture and making them their own, localization. There's obviously foreign influence in this, in that way. And also, inescapably, the popular culture has to address the role of the Chinese in Thai culture, particularly in popular culture, which is enormous. And that is an area that's been delicately absorbed more and more into the national way of discussing these things. There have been Thai Chinese museums open in recent years, and these have also looked into the popular culture. For example, the museum underneath the Wat Drai Mit in Bangkok, that does talk a lot about the Chinese contribution to popular culture. Now, I think the basic key to understanding Thainess, from my experience with it, is that it's coming from 2 directions. One is descriptive, which is what I was doing, which is describing what I'm finding on the ground. And the other is proscriptive, which is an idea from above that's directed or sometimes imposed about what something should be. Now, every country around the world has some balance in this. Thailand is among the countries that have quite an ideology of what their identity is. Other ones include countries like France or America. Another good example in the region is Indonesia, which tried to integrate a former colony. It's very diverse, but it has this Pancasila philosophy that is, it's not as highly developed as Thainess, but it is something like that in terms of making a unity concept. And so there's this, sometimes there's contradictions come up in Thainess that we see and remark upon because they seem surprising, but a lot of it is because the image of what should be or what is presented outside with a sense of prestige for national face doesn't quite match the Thainess on the ground and the impulses from Thai people's actual behavior and choices and tastes. They're a very wide variety, and not all of that gets presented abroad. And that's what I was trying to do in Very Thai, was to encapsulate some of those different kinds of behaviors in a very, very broad cultural scene. There's quite a few points I'm sure that will come out in the discussions, but I just wanted to make one small point, and that is to do with national culture is a thing in itself, slightly different from what the traditional culture of the country is. A national culture has been created and devised, and it has commissions and it has all sorts of principles. But something that you start to see up country in things like festivals is the national culture imposed upon an existing local culture that's old and indigenous, and they're not the same thing. And in the past you'd have seen a lot more variation and informality and local beliefs and local ways of doing things and times of doing things. And then nowadays you'll find things are much more coordinated, different kinds of VIPs. There may be the Bangkok appointed governor rather than the local shaman, or it might be instead of villagers casually dancing from other villages, everyone's now in military lines doing their Thai dances in very strict rows. And there's lots of national symbolism displacing local characteristics. So I think that we do need to understand that in the forming of a national identity, there is also a question about an imposition on what was there before.
Thank you, Philip, and thank you everyone so far. It's been under 5 minutes, which is great. Yes, yeah, that deserves a clap. Next we have Kun Som Tao, a noted composer and conductor and award-winning novelist. His operas often have Thai themes. He's also just told me that he is currently writing his very first book in Thai, and the title is Kwam Pen Thai. For those of you who know Thai, it's actually Thainess. So he is currently writing a book on the topic in Thai, and apparently his next book is Farangness. So here we have it. Kun Som Tao, please.
Well, actually, to be fair, this is can this be outside the 5 minutes?
Sure, go ahead.
To be fair, what happened was that Andrew Biggs got a contract to produce a series of books in Thai for Siat. He asked me to write an autobiography, and so I thought that I would write a book in 3 volumes. The first volume would be about my growing up in foreign countries, so I would call this Kwam Pen Thai. The second part would be about my return to Thailand and the different battles that I had in being perceived as a Thai person, and that book would be called Kwam Pen Farang. And the final book, which would be the unification, that would be called Kwam Pen Manut.
Oh, there we go. The
Now,
trilogy. You heard it here first.
Okay. Now, this has been stuck in my computer for about 2 years, so I don't know if it's but it's on its way. But so I think I might be the only person here who can create a grand unified theory between the top down and the bottom up perception of the because both of these are very important features, and because one of the things that has not yet happened, all these wonderful people have talked, but not one person has actually tried to say what Thainess actually is. And I'm actually going to attempt this in a very vague sort of way. And this morning, I had a brilliant flash of lightning when on my Facebook page I saw a posting. I think it might have been by you. This posting showed an article in which it explained that Bangkok University was now going to allow boys and girls at the university to wear the uniform of either sex. Nothing could be more Thai than, right. But the point is that people who detract, the enemies of Thainess, they're all going to say, look at this. All the Thais ever want to do is be uniform. They all want to wear the same clothes. This is shocking. There's no individuality. All the pro-Thainess people are going to say, this is so wonderful. These people are allowed to express their individuality. You can go to the school dressed as a girl one day and as a boy the next day. Okay. Now, both the pro and con statements are absolutely true. And I think this brings me to the heart of what I personally think of as Thainess. It's the ability to hold and digest completely contradictory points of view at the same time. Now, this is the thing that has caused Thailand to survive, without being taken over by the British, because we both won and lost the Second World War at the same time. I mean, it is. I mean, I don't want to be too nasty to the Ministry of Culture because I'm asking them for money. But many years ago, the ministry stated that they wanted to get rid of all these topless women from Songkran. This is so shocking. This is so un-Thai. Now, at the very same time, on the website of the ministry, there was a Songkran celebration picture with an ancient Thai picture of topless women celebrating Songkran. It was at the same time. And again, this is an example, I think, of the ability to hold these. And I was the one who pointed out on Twitter, I think, that the shock of women being topless is not a Thai thing, but was introduced by missionaries who are puritanically trying to change our culture. Right? Okay. So this everything always has an explanation when you go far back enough, and I think going far back enough is actually the key to this, because our country is an explosion that took place at the confluence of many mighty cultural rivers. It's the Indians, the Chinese, the West, and what is so uniquely us about this is the fact that all these things have managed to coexist. And so sometimes I'm asked especially by some Thai people, what is it about your work, your music, that is so damn Thai? I mean, I don't see anything Thai about it. Yeah. Okay, this happens to me a lot, and my answer is that everything that is Thai can be summed up in a simple plate of yum. You see, yum is a Thai salad, right? And the most important thing about Thai salad is that each ingredient maintains its individuality. Some are crisp, some of them are mushy, and they're all together at the same time. And when you eat it, you have to enjoy every single flavor simultaneously, even though they contradict each other. And this is not true of other cuisine. Many cuisines are about blending, beautifully sort of blending things together into a smooth sauce, for example. But Thai cuisine is about coexisting, about things being together. And this is why, although the government has explained many of its great plans for encouraging people Thainess, I too have my own plan, which I'm putting into effect with or without the government's help, and which is that I'm turning the 10 lives of the Buddha, which is one of the most Thai things, into a massive cycle of 10 operas, which will be performed as a huge cycle in 5 years' time. Now, what this means, I think Jonathan said, "What have you been doing in these troubled times? You must be keeping your head down, afraid to say anything." And my response to this is that I'm sitting at home, locking the door, and creating works of art, and hoping that I survive, right? What I'm doing here, you see, by definition, a cycle of 10 operas is going to be the biggest work of all time in music. And therefore, it automatically puts Thailand on the map, even if it's a terrible piece of work. Suddenly, people's attention is going to be drawn to this country. And suddenly, the Europeans have Bayreuth, but we're going to have Thyroid. You see? And this is my plan. I've been trying to rope the government in. All the people on the top level say how wonderful it is, and then it gets to the bureaucrats, and they say, "Oh, this isn't." So this is my message to so many important officials. But so all I'm going to say for now. Am I up? My time is up.
You've got 5 seconds.
I've got 5 seconds. Okay, I'll pass it on. We'll talk later.
Our last guest, Kun Pitch.
Thank you.
Kun Pitch Pongsawat is a political scientist and a professor at the Department of Government at Chulalongkorn University. He teaches modern Thai politics, amongst other classes, and has been a columnist for several publications. He currently has a Tuesday column with Matichon newspaper. Kun Pitch ka.
Well, I don't know I have anything left to say, but I think the issue of Thainess is, to me, is quite very new, and the way we look at it is it's the realm of cultural politics as well, in the sense that in the old day we probably got the old framework of modernization theory, which you kind of separate things between tradition and modern, which mean Western, right? But I think for Thainess now, it's another form of modernity. It's the way we explain ourselves. It's the issue of identity, right? So the key question in identity politics is that who actually has power to define it, right? And how can you reconcile the contradiction? Right? I think that's what Philip and Jan Somthao that already talk about. But so I think this is very crucial in defining Thainess. And sometimes it's not simple to say that, Thainess is something very traditional, right? Because there's a lot of modern concept, and sometimes you have Thainess and you say, oh, this is Thai, this is not Western. But sometimes the way you think about Thainess is so Western, right? So the way you grapple with opposition within the Thainess is also very interesting. And when you get also into the realm of politics, I think it's also very, very important, because when there's so many events in Thailand that when you cannot deal with other people in the same society, you label them as non-Thai, right? And once you label them as non-Thai, or you're creating the other, the issue is that sometimes you tend to have a certain type of standard which is not the same as the way you treat yourself, right? So I think that's a pressing issue. So I would say that this type of modernity, in essence, it's actually a way to, if you treat it as one form of modernity is the issue of how you can have a sense of control. Basically, when you look at Thainess, you also need to look at the context, right? Philip talked about localization, but it's not just about localization, it's also about the way you deal with changing world, right? The way you perhaps frustrated. That's why you keep asking yourself, who am I? Right? Because if you don't ask this question, if you get along with everything, you don't need to define it. right? In certain moment in your life, you don't think that, okay, this morning I'm gonna brush my teeth and whether this is the Thai way or not. You just do it, right? But then when you feel like you have some rupture with something that, well, you probably don't want to do it, or you feel like, well, it's better way to do it and you don't want to get along with something, perhaps that's the way you talk about Thainess as well. And my last point is on the other way of looking at the Thainess, because I said about the who actually can define the Thainess. Well, one way of looking at the Thainess is when you look at the high culture and the ordinary. But I think now in Thailand we are facing different type of ordinary life within the same society. Basically, like, well, if you are Thai, if you understand a lot of pop culture, if you watch television channel 3 and you watch television channel 7, it's different world, right? Or if you watch like the channel 3 and the other one watch perhaps the cable, right? The local cable. Now you know how many television channel that you have in Thailand, right? More than 200 channel. Isan Ban, how there's so many channel, right? So the world is different at the same moment of time and space. So you actually look at the world differently, right? So I think now it's more like a vertical separation of culture as well, right? So when you look at channel 3, you look at the world one thing from not only the news, but the way they presenting, for example, the rural, right? Channel 3, the rural is the nature, and we can save the countryside by doing a good resort. But Channel 7 is different. It's poverty. It's the tension between city and rural people. It's different. So I think that's not just about high culture, but the emerging fraction within the same level of ordinary life in Thailand. Thank you.
Thank you, Ka Ajahn Pitch. We will now open up the floor to questions. There will be a mic in the middle of the room. As always, the house rules is that if you are going to ask a question, please introduce yourself, who you work for, or if you freelance or are not a journalist. A very important house rule is please to ask a question and not make a statement. Our panelists are here dedicating their time to you, and they're here to answer questions, so we definitely should make use of that. The other thing is Kunchatan has another engagement to go to, so if you want questions for Kunchatan, this is your chance. He will have to leave in about 15 minutes. So please go ahead. I'm going to turn up the floor to the first question.
Michael Mackey, just freelance. 2 questions, if I may. Kundarani, you were talking, it was very interesting to me, as a representative from the Minister of Culture, you use the word economic sometimes more than government economic spokesmen do. And I'm wondering if there's some kind of statement within that, but also you were talking about this film festival that you're going to sponsor in London. There's a slight problem I have with that. Having watched any number of Thai films, some because I have to, some because I choose to, some of them are very bad, some of them are very good, but there's a recurring problem of censorship on some of them. How do you sponsor a film festival and get round the issue of censorship? And how do you actually choose a film? Because in choosing films, you choosing a definition of Thainess? So if you can answer that. And my second question is for Konsomtoy. Don't worry. I like coming to your concerts. It's great when you conduct. Can you explain why Mala? Is there some cultural resonance that Mala has in Thailand that he doesn't seem to have outside the Germanic-speaking world? Thank you.
Okay, first question, Kun Darani, how do you censor, or how does censorship work, and Thainess, how do they work in conjunction?
Yes, for the film festival that the Ministry of Culture organized internationally, we select the film from the awarding one. So it's quite so there's no problem on the censorship because the film that award from the Thai Film Festival or Thai Film, what do you call, Thai Film Award before, it means that it has no problem of the censorship. So the one that we are going to have it in London, we select 7 films comprised of like love film, ghost film, which is I think that the Thai ghost film is very popular, and also the documentary one. So it's a kind of not that too sensitive for censorship.
And the second question? Mahler?
Can I make a remark about this? Because many years ago, and this, of course, was a different government and a darker time, perhaps. But I received an email from Apichat Pong. He was in Vietnam at the time. And he said, you know, here I am in this repressive, communist, evil country. Why is it that I am feeling less censored? Now, this was a long time ago, so we are hoping that things will have gotten better, aren't we? We're all hoping this, right? Okay. But my answer to your question is this. When I first started to do Mahler in Thailand, I had no clue how people would feel about it. And the first piece I did was the Fifth Symphony. And I chose that in a way because it's the most populist of them in a very real sense. I mean, it was the theme from Death in Venice, and it's sort of got a strong sort of drive from tragedy to triumph. It's very sort of, in a sense, easy to understand in a sense. But the thing that was amazing to me was the audience was completely full of young people. And the average age of the audience was considerably lower than when I go to similar concerts in Europe, where everybody is complaining that the hair is getting grayer every year, right? So, and this is really what encouraged me to do the whole cycle. And I can only say that it must be reaching people, because the number of people who come to see this music, which everybody who supposedly knows everything about music tells me that no one in Thailand will ever appreciate this. No one will understand it. No, it's too Western, that sort of thing. But actually, it speaks very, very clearly to a specific kind of alienation that we're all feeling here, in my opinion. And Mahler himself said that he was 3 times a stranger. He was a stranger in Austria because they thought of him as a Czech, and he was a stranger to the Germans because they thought he was an Austrian, and he was a stranger everywhere else because they said you're a Jew, right? So, and I think that one of the things that Mahler explores greatly is the question we are all asking today: who am I, and what am I doing in this world when all these things are happening around us? And I think that really does speak to modern people here, and that's why I think it's been astonishingly much more successful than I thought it would be. Thank you.
Could I just add a little comment
Sure,
on linking
please.
those two things? You're talking about alienation of youth, and you're talking about censorship of films. There's been probably the most lively area of popular culture is film at the moment for several years, and there was a group of young film enthusiasts who don't have a space in Thailand. There's a huge issue about space for anything other than official culture in this country. And their group was called Third Class Citizen. Now, the leader of that group, he just won the big film awards this year with his film. He's now one of the big names. But it's that I've noticed in the indie world, in the young creative scene in this city particularly, and also in Chiang Mai, there is an enormous demand of young people for stimulation and for space and areas to express themselves. And there's clearly some problem with how Thainess is failing to accommodate this massive demand in Thailand. When you go to something like the TCDC's Creativity Unfold Symposium, you have to go into a separate auditorium and see it on a film because the tickets have all sold out, and it is all young Thais who all want creative self-expression, and they're not being able to do it in their own spaces.
Oh, Philip, one of the most interesting things that this leads to is, Thai film is now actually a real player in the world. People are actually paying attention to it for the first time. But they are not really paying attention to the films that the establishment wants them to pay attention to. And one of the biggest problems is that I think the world perceives real Thainess in a movie like Satri Lek, which was a huge hit internationally, right? But whereas when you see a big historical epic, it's often seen as a cheap imitation of a Hollywood movie of the 60s. You see, and this is a problem that many times the creative forces have way overtaken what people think is going on. I mean, it's like I'm always hearing, we must make Bangkok into the major creative hub of South. I hear this all the time. And excuse me, but it is the major creative hub of Southeast Asia. More things are happening in Bangkok, in Thailand. More things are happening creatively than anybody in the establishment seems to realize. We are already at the epicenter. And let's try to make everybody here aware of that.
The biggest thing is space.
Yes.
There's venues, simple space to do anything.
Guys, you also want to ask questions. Sorry.
Oh yes. Let me ask my question first, since we don't have Kun Chatan and here for much longer. Kun Chatan and Kun Darani, is the Ministry of Culture and the TAT redefining Thainess quick enough, to accommodate for the new things that are coming up in Thai culture? Is it quick enough to keep pace with modern Thai ideas?
Well, I don't think redefining is the goal. It's just we wanting to perhaps elaborate more on what we think or Thainess is. Well, actually, that sounds like a dictatorship, doesn't it? What we think Thainess should be. But I better stop here. Okay.
We forgive you.
I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to assemble all the things that we think should be presented to the world, and in this responsibility of the Ministry of Culture to Thais themselves. A lot of Thais don't, they don't understand, or they don't know, or they don't care what Thainess is. For me, for TAT, that's a more, like I said at the outset, a more challenging task, because you're talking to people of very varying cultures, backgrounds, and so on. So what we try to do is not to redefine, but to better explain what Thainess is. This year, we've laid the foundation for what is to go ahead in the next year. This year, we're just giving you, or rather the target markets, a broad overview of what Thainess is, or what you can expect to find in Thailand when you come. Next year, we're going to go deeper. We're going to tell stories behind things like, your average plate of pad thai, or as Kun Som Tao very, succinctly put, yum. That's a very good example. There is a story behind everything. So we're moving forward with that. So I guess not so much redefinition as explanation.
Yes, for Ministry of Culture, actually I have to accept that in the past we may give the meaning for cultures just for the traditional issues. But nowadays, like the new structure of the Ministry of Culture, that we have the Office of Contemporary Art and Culture, it means that we open the chance or opportunity, or what you call space, for the things that we call what modernity or creativity. So it's open, and I think that it will be more and more in the future.
Okay, to you, Nick.
Hello, I'm Nick Nostitz, a freelancer. My question is basically I feel that one aspect of Thainess hasn't been really discussed about here, because Thainess also has quite a bit of an element of the relationship between the individual and the state and authorities. So it's a very hierarchical situation, especially now also expressed in the 12 core values promoted by this government. Which in some ways also, it seems to me, becomes quite oppressive to at least some part of the population. How would you see that? It's a form of alienation in many ways for Thais themselves now, who do not follow the culture of the establishment.
John Pitch, you touched a little bit on this earlier. Would you like to answer that?
It's very difficult to answer. If you talk about political culture of Thailand, right? I think one answer is to agree with you that there's some type of oppression, right? And with these situations, it's very hard to promote the freedoms of expression, right? Especially, how can we make sure that we include everyone in this politics? But on the other hand, let's have this opportunity to take a deeper look into how people deal with these situations, right? How can you deal with the way Thai people have gossip, how the way that really people trying to present themselves as being normal in the situation that they are not very normal. I think that is also very Thai, right? And I think you learn how to understand the way Thai people keep the feelings and the way they tell you the things that normally they are not allowed to say, right? And then you hear it everywhere.
Thank you, John Pitch.
And it's worse in Singapore.
Next question, please. Go ahead to the mic. Oh, don't fight for it.
Hi, my name's Adrian Baker. I teach humanities at KIS International School.
Okay, just one
Yep.
second. Kun Chaitan has to leave now. It's 8 o'clock. I just wanted to just take a second and thank you so much for coming, Kun Chaitan. He had a very busy schedule. And we hope you come back and join us on another day for another lively discussion. Of course. Okay, please continue.
Thanks. Yeah, so my question kind of builds on the last one, and it's referencing a John Pitch mentioned. Key question in identity politics is who has the power to define it. So I'd like to open that question up to the panelists in the context of Thailand. Who has the power to define what is Thainess and whose interests do they represent?
Any volunteers?
Can I say that history has shown that nobody who has ever claimed to be the one to define any identity has ever succeeded in doing so.
Philip?
So it doesn't, in a sense, it doesn't matter who thinks they're defining it. It doesn't work.
Philip?
I've heard much the same thing from Thais who are saying that when they hear these strictures from authorities of different types, for example, there'll be situations where, say, somebody dresses inappropriately, and then the level of outrage goes from 0 to hysteria extremely fast. And what it does is it gives license then to bullying of that person. And this is often done online, or as often the baton's passed to maybe their university or to some other authority, and they're scolded, and perhaps they lose their position, they maybe lose their job, this kind of thing. And then there's a backlash of sympathy for the person, and you end up with people saying, but nobody will take a notice anyway. It's sort of like a knee-jerk exercise that some people in society feel they need to go through in order to... I think it comes from insecurity. And all of this I think a lot of the things we see in Thainess where it jars a bit is overstatement and overclaiming, claims for uniqueness of things that are shared with many other countries. This is where Thainess comes undone, and it's riding for a fall really, because there's always if it's claiming things that can't be supported so well, there's going to be a situation where that information comes to light and it becomes awkward. I remember something I read about by Kukrit Pramod, the former Prime Minister, and he was a cultural maven. And he was talking in 1970 about the way that authorities reacted to women wearing miniskirts, which is the spaghetti strap of its day, and or the underboob of its day. And he made the point that the way that Thai women were dressed was through compulsion. It wasn't through choice. It was that there was a compulsion in the middle of the 20th century forcing Thai women to wear Western clothes. And then he made a more general point that compulsion in matters of culture only leads to alienation, that people will get rid of all traditional culture altogether because it's imposed, and it's then seems like something outside of you and not part of you. And that's a very bad way to preserve culture, is to force it on people.
Philip, I think the insecurity you were talking about has very strong historical roots. I think that really it really began 70 or 80 years ago because there was such fear that we were no longer who we were, that people began radically trying to redefine who we were and inventing things that suddenly became iconic Thai things. I mean, everybody of my mother's generation tells me that saying "Sawadee" is very lower class because real Thais don't say it because you should really why. And actually, of course, the word "Sawadee" was invented by the government because they wanted something cool and modern instead of. That's one example of how can something become so Thai in only 3 generations.
And it's quite interesting. I've just come from Bali, where they say "Om Sawati Astu."
Yeah.
They say they do the Y and they say "Sawadee" as a greeting. It's older than Thai
Yes.
in doing that, and there's nothing unique about that whole thing, and yet it's presented in the airport and tourist brochures as being something that is specifically Thai. This is overclaiming again. I think it's we're getting off the bit of your point.
The insecurity, and
Let
I
me
don't think we
ask-
need to be.
Kun Pitchka?
Just to add into that, but probably slightly different topic. But I think when we talk about the distinction between high culture and ordinary, or maybe city and rural, and who define it, I think also the other point that's worth mentioning is the transgression, or the ability to mix them up. And sometimes the one who keep the culture is not the one that actually own that culture. For example, if you watch television, Channel 3, they love to talk about the royal family, but they're not, right? But they love to talk about the noble family, but maybe they're not. They're maybe just the middle class Chinese, but they reconstructed, right? So this is Kun Chai, how Kun Chai should act, right? How the high class should act in the movie, and most of the hero is Kun Chai, right? They were the one that like has a royal blood, but some of them are not, right? So the ability to perform, right? And then maybe you have Channel 7 as well, who like have the Lakon Jak Jak Wong Wong. I don't know how to translate it.
You're completely right, because all the older generation Mom Russia Wongs,
Right?
yeah, like Mom Panti, they're all dead now. But they always used to say to me, you know, we never had any of that when we were growing up. None of this rubbish crawling around. Oh. They would always talk, and they would always say it in these hideous British accents, which is also a very strange. It's a very strange feature. Oh.
All right, I think we should get back to the questions. Please, the next person at the mic.
I'm Brian Mertens. I wrote a book about 10 years ago called Architecture of Thailand. And it's actually about Thainess, in a sense, both in the sort of elite architecture of palaces and temples and the everyday architecture, all the way up to the kinds of things that are documented in Phil's wonderful book. I'm wondering about what I've noticed, that during the last 10 years, quite a bit of that architecture has actually disappeared or been sort of transmogrified beyond recognition, stripped of its sort of community connections or roots. We all notice that government agencies are very quick to embrace campaigns and spending on advertising about Thainess, but why are there so few officials or politicians or community groups with real power that could emerge and protect this kind of culture as it is, the real elements or the real embodiments of Thai culture around us? And I think everyone on this panel might have something to say about this topic.
Maybe
so the heritage.
Begin with Kundarani. Is there some effort on a community level to preserve perhaps Thai architecture or Thai culture?
I think that because of the modern life, and the people would like to make themselves convenient or more comfortable with the new style of modern life. You see that for now many the tourist attraction that is very popular among the Thai people is the old market, like Amphawa, Samut Songkram, which you can find the architecture, the local or traditional architecture, but it is not. I think that it is not used as in the past. I mean, the function is different now. But because this is now the tourist attraction, so many people who live in this kind of like traditional wooden house, Thai style, now becomes like a resort or the cafe or souvenir shops than the local people. I think this is what we call, this is it's a natural way of changing. You cannot keep the old style while the world or the society has been developing. Like in the past, Bangkok was called Eastern Venice, something, because we have many canals and people transport by canals, the house along the canals. So in those days, the people live. The living condition is something, but nowadays, since there are no more canals or the road, people have to have a car, so life change. So how can we keep staying in the same living condition like that? So this is my opinion. Thank you.
Shall we have the next question? Oh, Philip, you have
I remember years ago at Metro magazine we had an article about buildings that were under threat at that stage. An awful lot of those have disappeared. And I remember one of them that was under threat at the time was the what's now Blue Elephant restaurant. And it had been originally the Bombay department store, and it became the Thai Chinese Chamber of Commerce. And that Chamber of Commerce wanted to demolish it because it was hiding the view of the lions of the new tower behind it. And their rationale was that it shouldn't be preserved because it's not Thai. They were citing Thainess as the reason why that building shouldn't be preserved. It's a perfect example of a hybrid, of a Western building form that's adapted to the climate and conditions of this locality. And so it is actually part of a record of Thai living in this in the past century. And an awful lot of those buildings that explain that story have not been preserved. We tend to preserve the palaces and temples. We've just started to preserve a few things like certain stretches of shop houses, but on the whole, streetscapes, mid-20th century architecture is almost being deliberately targeted. You'd have to say that with things like the Supreme Court building. It was deliberately targeted to knock that down. That's the way it looks to the outside. So I think that there's political reasons as to why some buildings are saved, some not. And it has to be said that one of the biggest problems is the ownership. People are not willing to challenge people who own these important buildings, and a lot of those are owned by temples. And a lot of the worst cultural outrages in Bangkok have been done by temples. Unfortunately, down at Wat Kalyanamet and down at Wat Yanawa, those are two of the biggest stories of important buildings being knocked down. That even heritage landmarks, buildings that have been surveyed by the Association of Siamese Architects and universities, smashed down by people who are unaccountable. But they're holding the patrimony of the nation, but they're not accountable. So that if for any kind of heritage to be preserved, there needs to be some kind of accountability for the people who own it, and that's a difficult play, but it has to be done by the people in authority to bring them in.
Accountability and an advocate. There's no advocate, basically.
Yes, yeah.
But much as one doesn't want to admit it, this could be one of those situations where an authoritarian regime could be useful. I mean,
but they're building a promenade on the river.
I hate to say this. I mean, but yeah, the thing is, it's got to be the right authoritarian regime, of course. But you know, I saw when I was a monk, I used to walk around in the Nang Leung market, which was near the temple, right? And I ran across this incredibly gorgeous wooden movie theater, which is in ruins. And it's just standing in the middle of nowhere. And it is so beautiful. And I went inside, and it could be restored so easily. It doesn't have to be a movie theater yet, but it could be restored so easily and be made into something beautiful and wonderful, a theater, a stage. I just wish that somebody up there would wave a wand.
Do we have another question at the mic?
Hi, my name is Rungrat. I run a language program for an embassy in Bangkok. My question is meant for Philip first, and then I would like to hear the Thai speakers whether they agree with Philip's opinion. Because you said that you've been here for over the 2 decades.
Yes.
So I'd like to know, in your point of view, how has Thainess changed over the 20 years you've been here? And what I meant is not about the tangible products like or artifacts. You know, I'd like to hear about the behaviors or attitudes of the Thai people.
I think there's been a huge change. I remember coming back to the office to report a sighting of a girl and a boy holding hands in Siam. That simply wasn't done, even in the mid-1990s. I saw it in Siam Center, and it was an event almost. It was like, oh my God, I saw that happening. And now it's extremely common. And you see boys and girls holding hands, and the boys holding the girl's handbag in the other hand. I think that in terms of taboos, social taboos, there's been a huge change. When Very Thai came out, the culture ministry was talking about Thai tattoos, but only in the sense that monks shouldn't do this awful, uncultural, un-Thai, sacrilegious thing that shouldn't be done. In between, there's been several books, mostly by Westerners, about Thai tattoos. Thai women, particularly young models and actresses, now get Thai tattoos on their shoulder blades. And now the culture ministry's statements about tattoos are about the safeguarding the Thai tradition of tattoos. And the taboos change because, of course, historically, they did have status, then they lost status, now they've got a bit of status back again. It's a roller coaster. The same thing with herbalism. When I came to Thailand, all of the talk about herbalism was that it was under mortal threat. The forests were being destroyed, the actual herbs themselves were disappearing, the herbal wisdom, which is now called Thai wisdom, was being discredited, and allopathic Western medicine was being championed. Then along came the economic crash in 1997, and the country couldn't afford foreign things. It had to look inward, and it was the best thing that happened, I think, in my time in Thailand, was that crash. It forced Thailand to assess its own internal assets and resources and its local wisdom, and to come up with ideas and as Brian wrote in the introduction to his book about Thai design, I mean, the day the baht crashed was the day Thailand got a design industry, because all those unemployed architects suddenly started mining Thai identity for motifs, for materials, for local ways of doing things. And this suddenly rebirthed a whole way of looking at Thainess and repackaging it and presenting it abroad. And this has now since come into the tourism authority. It's gone into, there's been people who've done that, who've got awards from the culture ministry. So there's been a huge change here. And now herbalism is an essential part of the spa industry, in which Thailand's one of the world leaders. So I've seen enormous changes. And I think even in the popular culture area, 10 years ago, a lot of the things I was writing about and thinking, oh, dare I put that in the book? And people said, oh, you'll be criticized for that. Actually, at that time, there was a zeitgeist that was bringing a lot of this kind of stuff to the surface, and it's gone mainstream. And I think other changes will come just as fast.
I think that I do agree with you entirely about this. Although you've been in Thailand much longer than I have, so. but I would also, I think that there's also a correction aspect to this, because in many ways we are reeling from the cultural revolution of the Jampon Paw era. We're reeling from this, and we're actually correcting ourselves back, very, in a way, because everything Thai was bad. In fact, everything Thai was not really Thai anymore for a while, right? And now we're sort of going back again. And I think part of what you're seeing is as much a move backwards as it is a move forwards.
What about Ajahn Pitch? Is there trends in Thainess in politics that has changed in the past 20 years?
So there's some topic that's probably not this. I don't know. I don't want to talk about that today.
Fair enough.
But I think right now there is a very thin line between commodification of culture and what we terming them creative economy, right? I mean, there's a good way and bad way about it. I'm not against commodification of culture. I think we should democratize Thai culture, so everybody should enjoy it. I mean, that's the key to me, right? So you can do whatever you like and you can claim that it's Thai. You just have to justify it. I think for me, I enjoy looking at how panda is being part of the local craft of Chiang Mai, right? And how you name Lin Ping as a Thai panda, or how you crying to have Lin Ping as part of the Chiang Mai attraction, right? So I think that's a mix of everything. So commodification has a democratic power as well, right? Because it's spread out, so people can actually enjoy it and remake it. Some people say, "Oh, this is so cheap," but as long as you make money and you're happy, you define your own self. I think that's fine, right? So because no one can actually have an ultimate power over this cultural politics, right? It's always contested, which I think it's very interesting to me. But and also just to go back to the previous point on architecture and cultural preservation, right? And there's so many good practices as well in Thailand that they really started with the issue of like the community was under threat by a flood or by the changing of ownership of the land, right? So they need to re-articulate that cultural dimension to save the community, right? Some of the practice of the ตลาดเก่า right? The now it's a very thin line between preservation and creating a theme park, right? Because you create some park as a like it's very oldies park, right? เพลินวาน or those kind of thing, right? And then people love to have a selfie over there posted on Facebook, right? But that's the dynamic of Thai culture, right? So as long as you can define it and you're happy with it, right? I think we should open the space. So open the space not only mean finding the physical space that people can present something, but open the space in terms of having a conversation, having a conversation that okay, this is Thai, this is also Thai as well. So I think that's I think that's probably the other way to talk about politics.
Sure, thank you. Looks like we are there other, you've already asked a question. Let's give other people a chance.
Hi. Hi, my name is Marian, and I was also born and raised in Thailand and lived most of my life in overseas and came back. And I just wanted to ask a question about this being Thainess, because to me, I think this being kept up as an illusion and maybe more or less for the tourism industry and not really being Thai anymore. Because as you mentioned as wine, respecting, I seldom see anybody, even my old school, which is Watana school, when we meet each other, it's kind of awkward to even why or not why. We have to kind of hold back. So I'm not quite sure, all these things that are being spoken of tonight, whether there is any legitimate thing about being Thai, because we're in a computer age where everything is instant. And the Thai people, like any place else in the world, has evolved. They're not, staying still and being Thai, because if they want to be Thai, they would have been Thai today. And today, you don't see people wearing their old costumes and doing all these things that you expected. Because when I come back, I thought, coming back to Thailand, but it's not the Thailand that I remember anymore. And for me to even think about, or talk about being Thai, which is why one reason I wanted to come to this meeting is to hear what some of the people who've lived here the last 20-something years have to say. So I really would like to ask, basically, what is it that, you're thinking of as being Thai? I just don't understand what it is.
Can Thainess be defined? Can Thainess be defined? I think is the question.
People who have never been to Thailand and get all their knowledge from the media have this idea that this country is a cross between a new special about prostitution and The King and I, with nothing in between. And this really is an image problem that we have to work on. I mean, it's seriously. Because actually, this is a very nuanced and complex society with many, many interesting things in it. What it is not, in my opinion, is a society that is so unique that it must have its own set of rules that no one is allowed to violate. And I think that this is something that we used to use all the time when we were attacked by journalists. We used to say, well, you have to understand that we are different and we can't play by these rules. And this has changed because everybody who lives in Bangkok also lives in every other city in the world, because every other city is here on their telephone. There is no island anymore, and as much as we have to want to cling to uniqueness, there's also an element where we must also belong to everywhere else as well. And I think it's this balance that we're all sort of trying to reach, really.
I think some of that globalization and digitization of culture generally is one reason why an awful lot of people talk about it, because many people feel threatened by those changes. Or they don't feel that they've got full control, and so they're using culture as a way to impose some control and bring people in line. It seems to, when Thainess is talked about by people in authority, it tends to be quite sternly, sometimes quite forcefully, even quite nastily, and so it looks like a disciplinarian thing rather than a celebration very often. And so I think a lot of it is to do with people wanting control. And we also live, if you look in a more general sense, in a period when local identities are running back up again. National identities are coming under siege from regions and from cities. We're in an era of new city-states coming back up, or whole regions of that might cross national borders. And I think these sort of pressures will be felt in this country, particularly with the ASEAN Union coming in, and when Thais encounter that they've got an awful lot of things in common with other countries neighbouring them, they'll start to be a bit puzzled by some of the claims made for Thainess of uniqueness, and they'll come to then question some of these claims. It's a difficult time for people who want to cling to control.
Do you have something to add, Kunpich?
A little bit to add on it, but just maybe I probably, I mean, my point is probably very subjective, but back to the previous question and then try to connect it with your questions. When you talk about what's actually changing in the past 20 years, right? I think food culture changed a lot. Thai food culture changed a lot. And to me, because I mean, my grandmom passed away already, so I would say that if I really want to have a Thai food, right? I think the Thai food in LA is more authentic than the Thai food in Thailand.
Absolutely true. Completely true.
But because it's the taste that I'm familiar with 20 years ago. The taste in the food in LA, Thai town, is actually more authentic than the food in Sukhumvit area.
Absolutely true.
Right? So that's something that we need to explain it as well. It's not just about observation, but like once you put the Thai people into that enclave, and the certain group of people are the customer, right? But here, because there's a lot of change, right? Something actually changed if you talk about Thai food, right? The taste of the Thai food that you once have it when you were young, right? At some space, actually, they preserve it better outside Thailand than in Thailand. Yeah, there's a lot of bad restaurant, Thai restaurant abroad, but I also love to have it as well because that's amazing to have like the way they make Thai food, which is not really Thai to me, but I like to have it because I cannot have it in Thailand as well. When you have a very bad Thai food outside Thailand, right? You cannot buy it in that price as well. Like, so that's. My point is that I'm not talking about authenticity. I'm talking about encountering a different experience, and okay, sometimes it's so subjective.
All right, we have 3 people at the mic, and I think that will be our last 3. So the last 3 questions.
All right, I'm Trianai from Council of English news site. I'll try to make my question count. There is a favorite argument among Thai conservatives that democracy and Thainess don't go along well together, and that's why we need Thai-style democracy and all that. So I'd like to ask the panelists, especially Kun Daruni and Kun Pitch, whether you think it's true that there are something in Thai cultures that are hostile to democracy, and if it's true, does it mean democracy is doomed in Thailand?
That is very deep.
Who would like to go first, Kundarani or Kunpich?
Let me go first.
Okay, Kundarani. Can democracy and Thainess go together?
Actually, I believe that democracy, it's proper in the situation, and I believe that the Thai style democracy is something that I don't know whether like foreign countries you think of democracy as a unique democracy. But in my point of view, I think that there might be variety of democracy, like the clothes or the food that is different from country to country. So you said that what your question is that the Thai style cannot go along with the democracy.
Can
But
it?
what's the meaning of democracy in your question? You mean the democracy what in the theory or the practical one?
As in, having election, respecting majority rule, check and balance,
I think that's the
transparency.
theory, and I think we believe in the rules of democracy, but the practice or the methodology to approach or to reach the purpose of democracy is maybe different way.
Kun Pitch?
Well, that's two ways of looking at the issue, right? Well, one way is that democracy needs adjective, right? So there's different type of democracy, yes. But, well, Thai democracy is not a democracy in a universal sense anyway, right? But that's the way they're trying to articulate it, right? So it's, well, well, what should I say? The issue is not about whether Thailand is ready or not for democracy, right? The issue is about the power relation within the country, right? I mean, who can define the rule of the game, right? And yeah, I think if that's the case, what's happened in Thailand is not very ready for democracy. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have it, right? I'm saying that there's some people who doesn't want to have it, but then they have more power than other people, right? So that's the reality, right? And then democracy itself has a lot of problem, and in many places of the world, they are also trying to deepen their own democracy as well. But I'm not saying that we shouldn't have it. I'm saying that, well, the issue is probably not about Thainess and democracy. It's about the power relation of the people within the country in which democracy cannot establish themselves as the rule of the game. And that's deeper than saying that, well, culturally we're not suitable for democracy, right? It's the issue of struggle, basically, and how can you settle and make sure democracy is the only game in town. And we cannot do it yet at this moment.
Thank you, Ajahn Pitch. Yes, next question, please.
Yeah, my name is Ray Buono, and I teach theater all around Southeast Asia. I have two questions. They're both kind of disparate. You can try to answer one or the other, or even combine the answers. One has to do with the idea of hegemony, and the idea that there are many Thai cultures or many cultures in Thailand. There's the Lana culture, for example, in the north, and the Lao Thai culture, and the Khmer Thai culture, and the Chinese Thai culture, and the Thai culture, and the Islamic Thai culture, or the Malay Thai culture. So how can we talk about this, and what kind of friction is in the country because of these Thainesses, your royal Thainesses? The second question is on another thing, and no one has mentioned education as something that forms Thai culture. And, it seems to me that students in the schools, from the very smallest students, are being indoctrinated, in a sense, in a kind of Thainess, which is not really something that any of you have addressed on this panel. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Any volunteers?
I think I could point out something about my own background. I come from a country that it's a United Kingdom It is an internal empire with 4 home nations, which we label as such. Even our rugby tournament's called the Home Nations Championship. And we understand that it may even be going in a federal direction, we don't know yet. But Thailand's not the only country in the world where the character of its national identity is being discussed. The question of what is Englishness and what is Britishness, which is one an imperial term and is one a more description of an ethnic identity? It's an interesting question to look at in the Thai context, because one of the big changes I've noticed has been a huge rise in the Lana identity. In fact, the word Lana was invented during the time I've been in Thailand pretty much. I remember when that area was referred to as Lao. I heard that term so much when I first arrived, and it wasn't until the 700th anniversary of Chiang Mai as a city entity that the word Lana was suddenly everywhere. And also Isan identity. There's a lot of friends suddenly declared themselves, I'm Khmer, I'm not Thai. I'm Lao, I'm not Thai. And we're starting to see films, including by Apichat Pong, where the dialogue is in Lao and subtitled in Central Thai. And I mean, it's a very interesting mix, and I think a lot of the reason why there is a lot of indoctrination in schools is precisely because there are all these other identities, and it's an attempt by Bangkok to be the imperial power within Thailand, rather like people from the regions in Britain resent London sometimes.
This actually does go back to my point about going backwards and forwards at the same time, I think. Siam was a wonderful federation of loosely connected different cultures, whereas Thailand is a country where one dominant ethnic Thai culture rules over every other culture. And is this good or bad? It happened for various political reasons. Many of us would love to go back to the way it was. And many people have, of course, completely forgotten the way it was. I think that the reawakening of these different cultures is a very good thing, because in the end, if we are really going to be like the EU or something, then the border between Thailand and Laos is going to be less important than these cultural borders, which actually are in completely different places, aren't they? I would, and of course, one of the problems with education in this country is that this is the reason I did the opera on Holocaust Memorial Day. It was because I found out that none of my students knew who had won the Second World War and had no idea who Hitler was. I think that one of the reasons that we are reinventing ourselves every 20 years is that kids have no idea what happened 20 years ago. And I think that in order to solve almost every problem that we've talked about, we can start by reconnecting with our own past. And it's the only way to actually connect to the only way to connect to the future is to have a past, you see. We can't, so many people want to invent Thailand again all the time, and there's no need for that. And I believe that Britain has been around for 1,000 years, so people are no longer worried about whether they're British in that sense. Whereas Thailand as Thailand is a relatively new idea, and I think people are still worried about it, and we should just get on with it and not be worried anymore.
I really like the question, because the question made me think about something that's maybe not really the answers, but maybe I have a slightly different take than Ajahn Somtao. I think it's the reinvention of culture is very normal, but the point is the tendency of the creation of Thainess tend to be more commodify right now and tend to be very concrete. We also need to have the Thainess in a very abstract sense, in a sense like I'm thinking of another example, like when you talk about the US, right? When you talk about being American, right? You talk about liberty, you talk about freedom, right? I'm not saying that, well, Thailand should be equal to freedom, but that at certain moment, right, when you talk about Thai means free, right? So the issue is that now we tend not to think abstractly about Thainess, in a sense of, well, what is actually the concept that can unite people together, instead of talking about a hegemony in an only negative way, right? There's hegemony is a domination, yes, but it can be a positive power as well. And then I think we cannot reach that point yet, because we tend to talk about Thainess mostly in terms of commodifications, or trying to talk about, well, something that perhaps cannot capture everybody. I mean, another example is very secular one, like Indonesia, right? When you talk about unity in diversity, right? So that kind of thing is the thing that they've been working on. I'm not saying that they success in that case, but I think when we talk about Thainess now, we kind of not really thinking in that direction of how to enhance or how to think about some kind of abstraction, and that will lead humanity into a certain thing. We tend to focusing on something tangible, something that will have economic value, something that's only sweet and nice, but not really something that we can offer to the world in a sense of, well, some abstraction.
Last question.
Thank you. Peter Metcalf, a retiree in Thailand, or not actually living in Thailand, but I first came here and worked here in the 70s. I was away for more than 20 years, came back again, and have been in and out of Thailand many times since. And what really struck me after coming back after 20 years is what so many people have been saying, that Thai culture had changed, but to me it still remained quintessentially Thai. There was no question that there was a Thai essence to it. And I think this is part of the strength of Thai culture, when you compare it to some other cultures in the world, that it is able to find its own modernity, that it's able to move forward, that maybe it's always self-questioning and so on, but it's still moving forward in its own way. So and this comes to my question, what makes me slightly uncomfortable about the Thainess campaign is the question which I'd like to ask Kundarani. Is it really dynamic enough, or is it too static? Because I think if it's a static campaign, then it's, first of all, one could question its value, and secondly, one could question its validity. But if it's dynamic, then it's going with the flow of this move towards a new Thai modernity, which is a less, as somebody said, Western modernity. Anyway, that's my question. Thank you.
Kundarani.
Yes, thank you for your question. I think our ministry identifying the Thainess as the dynamic one. As the activities that I give you for an example for the Thainess to the world that we are going to organize in London. Apart from the corn performances, which is a very traditional culture, we have the film festival that you all know, and also we have the Thai Eye exhibition of the contemporary artworks. So I think we don't give the meaning of culture or Thainess just to the very static or very traditional, but we also include the dynamic issues also.
Thank you, Kundarani. Because we're running out of time, I'm going to let maybe a quick question.
Last question, quick one. I'm Pecharat. I'm from National University of Singapore. I'm a postgraduate student of history. So I want to ask Kun Daruni about, you're talking about the aspect of Thainess to the world and what to represent Thainess, like Thai food, Thai temple or something. I wonder about the Thai reverence to the monarchy. Is that the aspect that you not intend to present to the world? Because I think that is very important aspect, right? And the monarchy is the first group attempt to define Thainess. And in here, I cannot see any aspect about the monarchy. And another issue, a small one, about the Thai fund. I think it's a little bit give the message of a prostitution in Thailand. If, right, Thai fund aspect, one of the 7 talk about. So do you have any intention to change it or you will remain with the Thai fund? Thank you.
Thai fund movement from TAT.
Yes, I think Thai Fund is from the Thailand Tourism Authority. So unfortunately, that question will, if any of the other gentlemen want to address Thai Fund, that's fine. But let's start with...
you were at NUS, right? You said?
NUS, yes.
Yeah, well, so you know that in Singapore it's illegal to have fun unless, unless actually legislated.
As for the first question, Kundarani, would you like to
What is it about?
tackle that?
Before
Can you
Thai
put the
fund,
question maybe short? I think the question is reverence to the monarchy part of Thai culture?
You mean that our ministry did not do anything concerning the monarchy?
Yeah, I think that the reverence of the Thai people to the monarchy is important. That the government might want to present to the world. But you didn't put it here, so I wonder why. Or maybe you feel like the monarchy is kind of anachronistic in the world stage, or what?
No, actually, our ministry pay what important emphasize on the what monarchy or monarchy reverence or whatever. The project Thainess to the World in London is to celebrate the Her Royal Highness Princess Mahataki Sirinthorn 60th birthday anniversary, and every year we celebrate the kings or the queens or the royal families' birthday or special occasion, and we have many activities that to present our loyalty and our love to the royal family to the world, to show. Also, we have the concert of the His Majesty's composition. We call the concert the royal compositions, concert of royal compositions, that we showcase it in international, so many countries. So is it I answer to your question? I'm not sure. But we have many projects about Thainess to the world.
So you continue to promote this kind of culture to the world as well.
Yeah. Let's get to the second question. Yes. Let's end on a fun note. What is Thai fun? What does the panel think?
This ties in a bit to the question that was before last, which we didn't get a chance to answer.
Sure.
Basically, Thailand isn't. Thai culture is much more about adaptation and the process than any particular thing. And part of that process is a sense of play and fun. That Thais play with all of these imports, and the way they make all their hybrids is the one reason why they stand out as Thai is because of the fun way they have with it. It's slightly irreverent, and they apply a different set of values to it. So it's often different from the sense we would have in the West of, say, classical architecture. It comes here and you end up with the Grand Hyatt Erawan.
Terminal 21.
Yes. So I think that's very important, is that fun. It's one of the key things that makes it very different and surprising all the time.
Anyone else? Thai fun? No? All right.
Are we having it?
Are we having Thai fun? That is the question. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying for our very distinguished panel. Thank you, Kun Darani, Philip, Kun Somtao, Ajahn Pitch. They've been such a great sport for coming out and having this very lively and intellectual discussion on something so abstract but also very current. If you really like the program tonight, I highly encourage you to join the FCCT and also look to our programs in the future. Next week, as far as I know, we are still having a program on Article 112. So please keep up. We will be keeping that updated on our website. Again, lots of great events. Join us, please. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Many journalists stay in Thailand for a long time. Almost of them stay in Thailand very long time.
Yes, well, I think it's it has a very big expatriate population that is not staying. I think it is one of the things is that, oh, there is,